This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Hey Darklings, Kaylin here. We know our generation has a surplus of pretty darkness in common, and if there's one thing unpacking our upbringing has taught us, it's just how essential therapy is for shining a flashlight on the darkness in our own lives. I don't know where I'd be without mine. I believe every human can benefit from the perspective of a licensed therapist. Whether you're familiar with your own inner workings or you're just looking for a listening ear, you can give BetterHelp online therapy a try by going to betterhelp.com/prettydark and receive 10% off your first month. I get that online therapy can be tricky, but I've been seeing my therapist online since 2020, and I'm here to tell you that it's absolutely worth it. Getting started is always the hardest part, and BetterHelp makes that easy. You can begin right from your phone or computer in whatever way makes you most comfortable, via good old-fashioned phone calls, video chats, or even messaging, if that's more your style. We enjoy this frightful nostalgia and learning about how it all connects, but Darklings know we're also passionate about healing and growing from what we learn. If you dare to do the same, head to betterhelp.com/prettydark. There you can answer a few questions, and BetterHelp will match you to a professional who has years of experience helping people like us. Plus, you can switch therapists at any time, so you're sure to find the right connection. Millennials are ditching the stigma and owning our mental health. And with BetterHelp, you can build a relationship with a professional all from the comfort of your own home, just how we like it. Visit betterhelp.com/prettydark or choose That's Pretty Dark podcast during sign up and enjoy 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/prettydark.
You're listening to That's Pretty Dark,
The podcast where we talk about all the entertainment that scared us as children
and still haunts us as adults. So grab your flashlight and join us as we take a frightfully nostalgic look over our shoulders
and under our beds
and in our closets.
And together we'll realize, whoa, that's pretty dark.
You know what I thought was really nice?
What?
Somebody last time said that I sound really happy. They think I sound genuinely happy, and they wanted to point that out. And it made me feel so good. I was like, I do feel happy. I am happy. Things are going great. So I really hate to ruin it this time by having the flu and sounding miserable.
The vibes might be different today.
Yeah, just a little
I've
bit.
gotten over it, so I don't have it anymore.
Yeah, you just had it.
Christian now has it.
I got it over the weekend.
I didn't give it to him, though. Just saying.
No.
This was not my doing.
No, I got it from a 6-year-old. She brought it home from school. So, yeah, just living it up. Living it up in this closet with the flu. Still in the closet. Having a great time. I got to get out of the closet. That's the whole thing.
The goal is usually to get out of the closet.
A lot of people live their lives in the closet, and then you got to
tons of people live their whole life
come
in
out
there.
of the closet eventually, right? I want to come out of the flu closet. And it's also fitting that I have the flu because so much of this episode has to do...
As much as such a thing can be fitting.
So much of this episode has to do with a flu. A faulty flue for a wood stove.
Sure, I'll let you have it. You're sick.
It's a plot device of the whole thing.
You're sick, so I can't criticize you too heavily.
You're gonna see
today.
You're gonna see. You're gonna be proven wrong. Tonight on this show, That's Pretty Dark. My name's Christian.
My name is Kaylin.
Thanks for listening, even though we sound like we're gonna die.
We're ready to do it to you. One of the most anticipated Are You Afraid of the Dark episodes, perhaps in That's Pretty Dark history.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I've been so pumped for this one. I thought it was like especially poignant because the juxtaposition of seasons in this episode and its reliance on extreme heat versus extreme cold make this episode not only incredibly timely when it comes to, the matter of climate change, but it also makes it perfect for our final winter episode before we enter spring.
I thought it was kind of funny that, of course, the timeline of episodes is questionable. We say that every week, every time we do an Are You Afraid of the Dark episode. But last time we were like, it's leap day. It's supposed to be cold and frozen and wintry. And then now we're in the Frozen Ghost and it's supposed to be a heat wave.
Yeah, they jump around.
The vibes are different.
The weather is different in Canada than it is here,
Colder, colder, usually.
But no matter the temperature where you are, listener, get ready to feel that old familiar chill in your bones as we revisit what many Redditors have described as one of the most frightening, memorable, and unnerving episodes in this series.
Do you think it's just because it stars a witch?
Quite possibly. I mean, that has a lot to do with it. There was a lot of build up for this episode. But they say that this is one that kept them up on dark winter nights, wondering what cold, dead thing might be waiting outside their bedroom windows. And I relate to all that, which makes this one of my lifelong favorite episodes of Are You Afraid of the Dark? This is Season 2, Episode 8, The Tale of the Frozen Ghost. It aired on August 14th, 1993, and I'm going to go ahead and say that the fandom wikis claim that it aired on July 31st is incorrect, but I have some very good reasons. This episode was a huge deal, and I believe it was specifically chosen to air on August 14th because, as one person on Reddit pointed out, the night of Saturday, August 14th, 1993 was the 1-year anniversary of SNCC's premiere on Saturday, August 15th, 1992. And there was a lot of promo for this episode in particular, not just because of the anniversary, but also because of this episode's very special guest star.
Very big deal.
She puts the heart in America's sweetheart. It's Melissa Joan Hart.
Oh, I love her so much.
Me too.
This, the reason that I think I remember this episode is obviously because of Melissa Joan Hart. But this, and I didn't look it up because I wanted you to tell us all about it, but this would have been between Clarissa and Sabrina, right?
It was during Clarissa.
Okay, so...
Yeah, that's the same time.
She had not yet become the witch that we know and love her as,
Correct.
But she was still explaining things to us.
Yes, explaining it all.
So she was a very trustworthy figure in the hearts and minds of all 90s kids.
Emphasis on the heart. So we're ready for an IMDb summary.
Yes, please.
A spoiled rich kid and his babysitter head off to his aunt's house in the country, where there's a ghost haunting the place during the cold weather. And that's succinct. It's pretty straightforward. That's what happens.
That's it. Great.
The closest thing to a summary...
They're not helping you out at all.
No. The closest thing to a summary that I could concoct is that this episode had everything we needed in the 90s. A recurring haunting, queer-coded aunts, Melissa Joan Hart.
Well, see, I thought the same thing, but are they not sisters?
I mean, yeah, technically for the plot, they're sisters, but it almost is like, wink, wink.
But it's almost like they're not.
They're roommates, Kaylin.
I had that thought multiple times. I was like, and they were roommates, but they're sisters, right? Like, and then they called each other sister, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they were blood sisters, except then they start talking about their family history, which makes me think that they were.
God.
But I would like it better if they weren't, honestly.
I was looking for any clue.
We've got enough sister stories out there.
I was looking for any hint that they weren't actually sisters, that was more of a presumption on the part of all kid audiences everywhere. But no, they do explicitly say father and things like that. So it's more about the mood.
Okay.
And they could could both be gay, but not for each other.
Fair. That's also fair. Well, yeah. I like that better. The thing that I keep thinking, you said queer coded. I'm like, I read that code also, but I'm like, I don't think we should have. I'm like, I feel a little bad about it.
Maybe it wasn't intentional.
So I'll go with that canon that they are not lovers themselves because they are sisters. However, that does not mean that they are not also queer coded.
They are independently queer.
Independently queer
from
and
each
independently
other.
queer coded.
And aren't we all kind of independently queer in our own way?
Amen.
You know?
Amen.
We're all about coming out of that closet. There are flus everywhere. We're all getting all mixed up in the flu closets. We got to just figure this out.
Yeah, I've been in all kinds of closets.
But this is a safe place to do that, though, because we're accepting of all types here.
We are, very much so.
Those with the flu, those without it. You know.
Those that use wood-burning stoves, those that use electricity.
God, I love a wood-burning stove. Well, this episode was written by Naomi Jansen and DJ, of course.
Of course.
It was directed by Ron Oliver. We know Ron Oliver pretty well at this point.
Yeah, we do.
He directed 17 episodes total, including Phantom Cab, Laughing in the Dark, Super Specs, and Dark Music so far. He went on to do a few of the absolute scariest episodes as well, including Crimson Clown, Water Demons, Ghastly Grinner, and Station 109.1, a personal favorite.
That is one of my favorites. I say it all the time.
And to give a brief refresher on his career, he also directed one episode of Alex Mack, 3 Hardy Boys, 1 Nancy Drew, 4 of the new Addams family, 6 Animorphs, and 16 Goosebumps.
He had a niche, he had a vein, and he stayed within it.
He really brought a lot of our 90s memories to life. Like he made them himself.
His voice, his vision.
His
it's in there.
vision.
Pretty deep.
His smells. His aromas were on everything. And we've also met Naomi Jansen before. She wrote The Tale of the Lonely Ghost in season 1. And these are her only 2 episodes. But if you're going to only do 2, these are a couple of doozies. But Naomi got her start writing for Alfred Hitchcock Presents and the War of the Worlds series, and she went on to write a couple episodes for a little short-lived series called The Nightmare Room, which is another horror anthology based on the works of R.L. Stine.
Also sounds like she had her niche.
And I can't remember if I talked about this when we did The Lonely Ghost, but if I didn't, I'm going to do it now because this stood out to me as something really, really incredible. Not only did Ron Oliver direct 3 episodes of The Nightmare Room, but the series featured the talents of Penn Badgley, Holly Marie Combs, Danielle Fishel, Dylan and Cole Sprouse.
No, wait a second. How the heck?
Frankie Muniz, Kaylee Cuoco, Brenda Song, Drake Bell, Justin Burfield from Malcolm in the Middle.
Are we certain?
Amanda Bynes, Allison Mack, Shia LaBeouf.
No.
Robert Englund.
This is crossing networks. This is crossing generation gaps.
And James Avery, who was the dad from Fresh Prince.
Whoa.
All these people I recognize. There are so many others. And
where is this? Does it exist? Can we find it?
I can't believe I've never heard of it. It seems like a fake thing.
That doesn't seem real. Like that list of cast.
I don't know. I don't know.
Clearly we have some research
but
to
I
do.
saw photos. I saw photos of things. So if this is a fluke, let us know. I've been in a pre-flu fog. So maybe I got something wrong.
I mean, if that nightmare room exists, I'd like to go into it.
My life is one big nightmare room. And I found a really fun recap article on Dread Central from a guy named Josh Korngut.
It has to be a good Are You Afraid of the Dark to get its own recap article.
Seriously.
You know it's a good one when.
There are some really fun quotes from that, and I just wanted to pull a few for all of our own enjoyment here.
Are You Afraid of the Dark was quintessentially gateway horror for an entire generation of doomed millennials. The series fully intends to mess up an entire generation of lonely 1990s Friday night weirdos.
I was like, maybe Saturday night, but I'm pretty sure it did shift to Friday eventually.
Yeah, I think at some point it did. I mean, I've never been more anything than I am doomed millennial.
Doomed millennial.
That is my personality in 2 words. So.
Friday night weirdo right here, this guy.
And that's you, yeah.
Yeah, Josh also said, what makes this particular episode so eerie is the sadness it surprisingly evokes, even so many years after it was first broadcast.
Agreed.
And that's kind of how I feel about it too. Yeah, it's sort of been this echoey memory of this kid out in the cold. And it scared me to death when I was a child, but now it's just sort of
sad.
It's so sad. It just kind of carries this weight to it.
That's kind of what I started to think whenever we decided, okay, we're going to go ahead with a third Are You Afraid of the Dark in a row, because I kind of thought I had time to mentally wrap my head around how I felt about it, because again, in my memory, like you're saying, it was this very echoey, distant, sad thing. I couldn't remember all the reasons why it was sad, but I remember it distinctly that it made me sad, which is not the case for the majority of Are You Afraid of the Dark episodes.
Right.
I would say that there were more Courage episodes that made me sad than there are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yeah, that gave you a lot of the existential...
Yeah, and there isn't all that much existential conversation. I hesitate to say that because every Darkling's out there yeah, there is. It's everywhere.
What do you mean, Ghost Host?
But I don't know. They didn't all hit as hard, I guess, as this does. Like we were talking about last time, there was a lot more levity, comedy. And this didn't really have comedy. It had sarcasm and it had,
right.
I'm not going to say it didn't have comedy, but it didn't really have levity.
There was lightheartedness on the part of the
sisters
characters.
Yeah.
And there were a couple moments I did laugh. I thought were funny, but it doesn't really have that effect when you're a young kid.
Not in a bad way either. I don't think that it was a flaw of the episode necessarily. It's just that wasn't present for me. So
any levity that did exist was overshadowed by
how really, really sad the premise is.
How hollow the actual backstory feels.
Right.
And also because it was so long ago. This jumps really far back in the past. I don't know how far back did Hungry Hounds go, It doesn't seem like it went 100 years.
I think it did, actually. Something like that.
That seems to be Kristen's move.
Mm-hmm.
Go that far back in time. Whole centennial.
We've talked about that before in relation to several things. Like, if you get that distance on the timeline between you and the sad thing, the thing isn't supposed to be as sad anymore. But,
right.
Like, we've talked about that with, like, the mummies and just, you get distance from death, and it's anything that you do to humanize whomever has passed.
Yeah.
That sorrow, that sadness, that actual loss is then immediately in focus as well.
Mm-hmm. I think that's where we get the term too soon.
Maybe so.
Well, when the episode begins.
Betty Ann, Kiki, you guys.
Kristen, the athlete that she is, blazes a trail through the woods on her way to the fireside meeting of the Midnight Society. So quickly that Kiki and Betty Ann can't keep up.
It's taking you guys so long. I mean, I thought I'd lost you. How can you walk so fast in this heat? Yeah, we're dying. Come on. We're almost there.
Kristen is bundled up in the group's typical style of jeans and a jacket, not to mention her backpack and her half turtleneck sweater, while the other two are panting, covered in sweat. And they do have their jackets, but they aren't wearing them. Mm-hmm. And I was like, why even bother with the jackets on this, the hottest night of the year?
Right.
But then I remembered that it's the 90s and they needed to have their jackets
and your mom
with them.
didn't let you leave the house without one.
Well, there's that, but they also needed to be able to tie their jackets around their waist.
Yeah.
And I say the 90s, but like I still do this proudly.
I do it with flannels more so.
Yeah,
a lighter
it's
layer.
Be a flannel. Right.
But not on the hottest night of year.
Never on the hottest night of the year.
On the hottest night of the year, I am going layerless, if I can.
I'm not sure sitting by a roaring fire is the best way to spend the hottest night of the year.
I said we rename it the Heatwave Society and tell the story about my uncle's pool.
From like late April all the way through early October, this is a vignette from any conversation had on the Gulf Coast.
Yeah. If
there's one thing we're all really good at down here, it's not just talking about the weather, it's complaining about the weather.
The heat especially.
If it's hot, it's too hot. If it's cold, it's too cold.
I was honestly always kind of jealous of watching things like growing up, like watching Bug Juice, because we say that Are You Afraid of the Dark, it has that setting in the north somewhere, northern United States or Canada. Like that's how it has always felt.
Yeah, because of the forest. Yeah.
And then growing up watching things like Bug Juice, where they had summer camp, but they were outside, s'mores around a fire. They were, in a sweatshirt and shorts at night, like, telling ghost stories, looking at the stars. And it was like,
it gets cold at night somewhere.
And then I went to summer camp in middle Alabama around Birmingham and I thought I was gonna die. Not only that, but it was a like ultra conservative Christian summer camp where your clothes had to be past your knees.
You had to be
fully clothed at all times.
Oh my gosh.
And I truly thought I was gonna die. So my idealistic visions of a summer campfire, it was always so nice and pleasant.
This is not the Pacific Northwest by any means.
Not even close. Yeah. So it was shattered for me then and there. And I had the same thought as they were talking about how hot it was. I was like, do you really want to go sit around a campfire?
Those summer nights, man. They're pretty sticky
nights.
And it's usually about the time those humid, sticky nights come into season that I start to really deeply miss those crisp, cold nights by a fire. And that's exactly the kind of off-seasonal pining that Kristen caters to around the campfire tonight, after giving them all a hard time for having a hard time with the heat.
Come on, it's not that hot.
How can you say that?
How could she say that? How could she wear that?
You still have your jacket on?
And the reason that Kristen still has her jacket on is because she's got a real chiller of a tale.
Committed to this bit in a way that I never, ever would.
By the end of my story, you'll be wearing yours too. Because I got a sure way to beat the heat. A story that's guaranteed to give everyone a massive case of the shiver.
Burr.
Submitted for the approval of the Midnight Society. I call this story Tale of the Frozen Ghost.
And no, it has nothing to do with the 1945 mystery, The Frozen Ghost, starring Lon Chaney Jr., although there could have just as easily been an episode inspired by that movie.
I'm glad you looked it up, though. We had to know.
It all began
when Charles Pemberton Schilling, of the third, was sent with his babysitter to spend a weekend with his aunts, so his parents could go to a wedding out of town.
The visuals of her storytelling begins with a frozen tree branch in the foreground, an unmissable indicator of just how cold it actually is.
There's ice, guys.
Look, see this tree? It's frozen. It's like a frozen ghost of
A tree.
In the background, a black limousine comes cruising down the very dark highway, because that's the only way to properly arrive at a creepy old estate after a long drive, is at night. Kristen says something like, "It was the coldest winter anyone could remember for 100 years. I was like, what is this? The record high snowfalls we experienced in January? We shattered that 100-year
The
record.
climate was changing. It was changing even back then.
And here we meet Charles Pemberton Schilling III,
What a name.
played by Andrew Henry,
Don't blame him at all for going by Charlie.
and his babysitter Daphne, played by Melissa Joan Hart.
Gotta love her.
Andrew got his start here on the show and started strong because he had a handful of other roles as a kid, but this was his most well-known. And not to overshadow your accomplishments and your contributions, Andrew, but ding, 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 we have a special guest star.
Yeah,
alert.
poor Andrew. He was never gonna
Sorry.
get out of that
Sorry,
shadow.
Andrew. Unlike the other famous child actors who got their start on this show, Melissa was relatively famous before she appeared.
hmm
So, what can we even say in just a few brief words?
I wanted you to just tell us everything.
Clarissa explains it all. Sabrina the Teenage Witch. She got her start in 80s television as Melissa Hart, but the Joan was added by the time she landed the decade-defining role of Clarissa,
hmm
who explains it all, in 1991.
Is that what she does? She explains it all?
She does. And continued to shape our mushy little 90s brains for 65 episodes until 1994,
Mhm.
before jumping shows and embarking on a new cross-decade masterpiece of young adult primetime comedy alongside the more mature likes of Friends,
Mhm.
Everybody Loves Raymond, and Third Rock from the Sun. This is Sabrina the Teenage Witch,
Mm.
which she led for not just 163 episodes, but also cameoed as Sabrina in other 90s shows,
Quite a few.
such as Clueless and Boy Meets World,
Yes.
among many others, right? And there were also a few feature-length Sabrina movies. There were
Mhm.
Sabrina video games, as well as Sabrina the Animated Series,
I was about to say there's even a cartoon.
for which she voiced Hilda and Zelda,
Amazing.
while her younger sister, Emily, voiced Sabrina.
Incredible.
But I think we're going to have ample opportunity to delve even further into her life and her career and how all that worked when we inevitably give Sabrina the old Casper treatment.
Cannot wait to do that. That's going to be, oh my God, history meets everybody's 90s experience.
I know, I'm so excited about it. I never tire of watching old episodes
Me neither.
of Sabrina.
I can always watch Sabrina.
Salem's my favorite. I
Me
follow
too.
the Salem the Cat fan page.
Me too.
The quotes are just, they make life better.
I got a Buzz the cat in my lap right now. I'm sure he would have some interesting quotes if we
Yeah,
could hear.
God.
If we could only
If-
hear his thoughts.
If these cats could talk.
These cats could talk.
Aren't you hot with all that stuff on? It's 90 degrees in here.
I'm not allowed to catch a cold.
Also me, I'm not allowed to catch a cold either, but I do it anyway.
This is the first of a few instances where Charles explains not only his privilege,
Mhm.
but also his ultra-pampered helicopter parent upbringing.
Very sheltered.
To be clear, this means he's not allowed to get sick. He also says he's not supposed to play with sharp things, which means he's not allowed to get hurt.
Mhm.
And he's not supposed to get dirty, which means he's not allowed to be a kid.
I get the impulse as a parent. Stay in your bubble.
You can't do that, though.
But you can't. You have to live life.
You have to.
And life is sometimes about getting sick and playing with sharp things, getting mud on your clothes and stuff.
Yes, sometimes you have to live life. Sometimes life has to live you.
Don't I know it?
Life, it'll kill you.
Nobody gets out of it alive.
And after all these years of babysitting Charles and putting up with what she perceives as a privileged rich kid's existence, literally calling him Richie Rich,
Mhm.
Daphne is sick of it. She makes horrible faces at him and calls him names and generally treats him very poorly.
Yeah.
But what stood out to me is that we're supposed to think of Daphne as the likable one,
Mhm.
while Charles is meant to be perceived as this wimpy little snobby rich kid.
See, I think maybe that was the idea and that's not the execution.
No, I mean, like, it is annoying. But like, I can't help but feel like he's a victim.
I mean, he is a kid. He only has the life experiences that have been thrust upon him to this point, you know? She, on the other hand, has seemingly a lot more life experience.
Yeah.
But again, there's this biting sarcasm. And because it's Melissa Joan Hart and we love her as Clarissa, we don't hate her.
I think it's like, oh, that's so funny. Wow.
Right.
I'm going to treat my little brother like that. This must be in the notes my sister took down.
They do have kind of a sibling dynamic because it says she's been babysitting him since she was 12, right?
Right.
So they've had like this relationship they've built over time. She's always she's been the nanny.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that she's so close to his age that we don't normally see that. But I also understand if you are a very well-off family, you're going to hire in a kid, I guess, to kind of be a surrogate sibling. So that's kind of a way they are giving him life experience that he wouldn't otherwise have.
It's like they bought him a friend.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they bought him a friend, but a friend that can take care of him.
And will do whatever they tell her to do because they pay her to be his friend.
I don't know. And you would think that they would know
so
that she was
sad.
going to bring those other life experiences to him. It's not like they haven't met her and they don't know her personality.
Right. I mean, she must have been a sweet kid. And she is nice. She's a very sweet kid.
Yeah,
It's Melissa Joan
she's
Hart.
honestly super
Everyone
nice.
loves
She's
her.
super nice to the aunts.
Yeah.
She's really like a go-getter. She's very driven. Like she's a good kid, it seems like.
Making that money.
So it makes sense that
Yeah,
she would
she's a
have
good
the
kid.
job, I guess. But it's always interesting
Yeah.
when that like babysitter relationship is so close in age to the child
Right.
that they're babysitting. Because there's this like, they're supposed to have authority, but they don't really, but they do because the kid wants to like get their approval. I don't know. It's just an interesting tactic. Looking at it from today's lens and me being the age that I am, I feel like it's an interesting parenting tactic to send your child with another child that you're also paying to sit your child to your relatives because they're not old enough to stay, I guess, alone by themselves for that length of time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, it makes sense. It's a very strange dynamic. I was hung up on the whole, a babysitter's not quite a guardian or parent necessarily, but they're also not family. They're not like your sister. They're not like your cousin. It's this weird nebulous in between, like relationship.
So it's like, do you automatically respect them more or less?
Yeah, it depends on the kid.
It depends on the personalities and everything.
Also, but like the way she treats him too, it was kind of like, is this abuse? Where are we?
Yeah, because
in
she
this?
definitely does make fun of him, poke fun at him.
Yeah.
You know.
Gives him shit constantly and like makes him feel bad for it. I mean, but I also get the whole thing like, if you're going to be nitpicky, fold your own clothes. She's
kind of there to rock the boat and say you can't have everything handed to you and you can't live in a bubble and all that stuff. But it just sounds a little bit strange coming from a kid that can't be more than 3 or 4 years older than he is.
They're very close in age. I'll draw your bath sire.
I'll draw your bath sire. So Melissa though.
Wow, she's so cool.
It's just she is so cool. You can't help but think she's cool.
It's a perfect episode for her. I thought she was the coolest.
Me too. Spooksville.
They roll up to the dilapidated old farmhouse, which is overgrown with dead foliage, and the place is dark and appears to be vacant.
Whoa, Spooksville or what?
It looks like the house from last time. Manoir Thibodeau.
Oh yeah. They are very similar. I thought it was funny that no angle of this house looked like the same house.
Nope. Every angle looked different.
Every angle was a different house, no matter where you were.
Kind of like your house, your previous dwelling.
My old house. Yeah, we did film.
Use multiple angles. You'd never know.
3 or 4 different locations because it looked different depending on how you looked at it.
All about the angle.
That's what she said. And even the driver is unnerved by the looks of this house.
Young man, you must be exhausted from the drive. Why don't you let us make you a cup of tea?
Oh, thanks, but I'd better be going.
TV Tropes gives him the whole, screw this, I'm out of here trope for noping out of there as soon as he's handed the kids over to the ladies of the house.
Peace out.
I better get going.
I'm gone.
I like to think I'd stay for that tea.
Yeah, you never know what might happen if you stay for tea.
But I can't help but think of it in like a real life sense of like, they're not just sweet old ladies in a 90s kids anthology. They're like sinister and creepy and smell bad. And
that's true.
Auntie whispers.
Maybe with all those extra sensory details, it's a little less appealing.
Now what's the problem?
What if they're asleep? What if they get mad at us for waking them up and they don't like us and they're mean to us all week?
They're your relatives, not a couple of wicked old witches. I hope.
And at this point, she was still Clarissa, so she didn't know yet that your two aunts can also be secret witches. You know, like when she becomes
I
Sabrina.
wrote that almost that exact joke because I was like, little did Sabrina know at the time. She didn't know she was Sabrina yet.
She wasn't cast as Sabrina yet, so she didn't have that knowledge. Isn't that funny?
But I do love how that aged.
Joke?
Just the fact that she said, they're your relatives, not a couple of wicked witches. And then her relatives were witches.
And it's two
not
aunts.
Wicked, though.
Specifically.
Yeah, it's also specifically
no,
two aunts.
Not old.
Maybe this is what gave the network the idea.
Yeah, who knows?
They were like, this seems familiar. Isn't there a comic about a young witch?
But our witches, aunts, are Aunt Greta and Aunt Maylene. Sandra Scott, who plays Aunt Greta, got her start in 1950s television on a show called Encounter, which is a Canadian anthology series presenting 1-hour dramas of romance, adventure, and mystery, according to IMDb.
I like all those things.
Her biggest claim to fame is doing 130 episodes of a notoriously bad Canadian TV series from the 1970s called The Trouble with Tracy. To quote IMDb trivia,
this program is legendary in Canadian film and television for its cheapness. It was filmed on a single set using a single camera, and the scripts were from a 1940s radio sitcom called Easy Aces.
So I think they just copied and pasted.
Hey, we have a script. Get a camera. Put them on a set. Just
Let's
put
film
something behind them. Doesn't matter what it is.
I love that. We could so do that.
Yeah.
That's Pretty Dark Studios.
Oh,
we
heck
just
yeah.
find old
TPD
radio
Studios.
programs. And we just filmed it with on a blank. Use a blanket for green screen.
Blanket green screen,
background.
iPhone on a tripod.
YouTube, man, just YouTube
done.
that shit. The more I think about it, the better it gets.
It's better than writes itself. It's already written.
And Sandra Scott kept working and appeared in 2 episodes of Anne of Green Gables in the 1980s, and eventually did this one episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? Her final credit was a character named Beulah von Birmingham in a 2002 feature-length gothic comedy horror musical called The Fall of the Louse of Usher, a gothic tale for the 21st century.
And it's a musical?
A feature-length gothic comedy horror musical.
Well,
Kayla.
I might have to look up this feature-length gothic musical comedy, whatever you just said.
Close enough. The Fall of the Louse of Usher.
I don't like lice, though. Parasites in general.
Sandra Lee Stadelman, who played Aunt Maylene, has 2 acting credits. This one, and one for the role of Grandma in a 1998 TV movie called The Tale of the Great Bunny.
Talk about being typecast.
Grandma. Nailed it. And these aunts greet the kids at the door.
With a giant candelabra.
A giant candelabra.
Had to be so annoying on set. It's like the year 1900.
Well, that's the vibe. There's a reason.
There's a reason.
Little Charlie? Oh, is that our little Charlie? I don't believe it. We haven't seen you since you were a baby. You've grown. This must be the babysitter, Debbie.
Daphne.
Oh, well, we're so sorry, but you're right, so please do come in. Come along, Charlie. Oh,
And despite all evidence to the contrary, they seem to be a couple of ordinary, albeit eccentric, older ladies. But like you're saying, there are a number of clues that suggest these ladies, or at least this property, is anything but ordinary. The first is, the candelabra, because the house has no power, which means they must maneuver through the dark with a big-ass candelabra with all that flame.
I mean, not just a candle, but 4 to 5 candles in your hand burning at any given time, which would be annoying to carry around in a home of any kind, trying to live a life in the evening time when it's dark outside. But also, all I could think about was the fact that they had to do it on set.
Yes, it would be hot too.
They're all crammed into this tiny little spot. Like, everybody is closer together than you think they are, when you're trying to get them on screen.
Mm-hmm.
And just the fact that they had to carry it on set, that was just the most arduous task that you could hand to this older woman and say, here you go.
Don't set
have
anything
fun.
on fire.
Don't burn anything down.
Don't burn anybody, please.
I felt for her. I was like, you're killing it. You can act while you're holding that giant candelabra. Not worried about setting anybody's hair on fire. Good for you.
If you can also chew gum while you do it, you're talented.
Mm.
And they also use a bunch of other candles around the house to light the place.
Mm-hmm.
My question was more about why isn't the house totally freezing? It's the coldest winter on record for 100 years, and they don't have any power.
And nobody really acknowledges that. Yeah.
At all.
Maybe it's all the candles. Maybe the candles really do give off that much heat.
They do give off some heat, let me tell you. Nonetheless, until we know better, it stands to reason that ghosts cannot pay their electric bill. Red herring number 1. And the reason we might wonder whether these two older ladies might no longer be alive is because of the snafu on the stairs.
Yeah, this bird's eye point of view shot as they climb the stairs. They're both holding the suitcase together.
Yep, lugging up that luggage. They have a misunderstanding about the difference between good hosts and good ghosts.
We're only trying to be good hosts. Maylene, I thought we agreed not to mention that. Greta, dear, I only said hosts, not ghosts. Ghosts?
If there's anything,
Ghost host.
there's anything we, your humble ghost hosts, have to say about it, it's that the two aren't mutually exclusive.
I mean, I don't know. I'll leave that up to you, the darklings
Tonight
out
is
there.
questionable.
I'll let y'all
Tonight's
make that call.
questionable. Just don't forget I have the flu. Okay? I'm trying to get through
God,
this.
it's always something with us.
One of us is always sick to something. I'm sick to death.
But Maylene's like, Greta, dear, I thought we agreed not to mention that. Because she says good hosts.
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 I didn't say ghosts.
Not ghosts.
I said hosts.
And so then you're watching and you're like, oh, well, shit. They're ghosts, aren't they?
They're totally ghosts, aren't they? Yep. But even if these two aren't ghosts, Maylene's seriously suspicious glances around outside before ever shutting them inside are never ever a good sign of good things to come.
Yeah. And I mean, clearly they're not talking about themselves, but when you're meeting them and you don't know any different or know any better.
And there's no power.
And there's no power.
And there's just candles everywhere and you're like, what's happening?
It's easy to feel that
we're
way.
Not ghosts, we're hosts.
But I also understand good hosts probably wouldn't immediately, upon guests entering the property, mention the fact that they do have a couple of ghosts haunting things.
Absolutely.
It's not necessarily a good host kind of move.
And we can't forget to mention the taxidermied crows that are placed all over the house as decoration.
If you don't have a taxidermy crow, I don't want to be in your house.
What are you even doing? And the next two most obvious clues that nothing here is ordinary or exactly what it seems are the practical effects that cause the objects in the house to defy the laws of physics. First, there's the rocking chair on the porch that begins to cradle on its own, only to stop abruptly as Daphne approaches it. And a similar thing happens with the hanging bulb in the bathroom. As Charles is sudsing it up, the light begins to swing from its fixture, only to stop abruptly once Charles takes notice. The odd thing here is it's pulled taut in his direction, like it's pointing at him. And then there's the matter of what Charles hears, and eventually what he sees. And that is the very real, frozen ghost calling to him from outside in the cold.
Did you hear that? What? A voice from outside.
I'm cold.
Just after the light bulb does its swing dancing, Charles hears more spooky voices. But these are coming from his aunts and Daphne having a conversation downstairs.
This old thing never quite works right, I'm afraid. We're only using it because the electric range doesn't work when the power's out.
So the ladies downstairs are talking about using the wood stove to make their tea and cook their meals. Because the electric range doesn't work when the power is out.
Especially not when it's been out for 3 months.
This is how electricity works, kids. Where there ain't none, it don't.
And there ain't none when you don't pay your bill.
When you don't pay your bill. I think this whole plot device is so funny. We never actually see any wood burning in the stove, but we do see the smoke from this non-existent fire filling their kitchen multiple times, leading them to open windows and clear the air. These old wood stoves have one function: to burn wood and to expel the smoke through the stovepipe and out the chimney. So you'd think that after all these years, somebody would have thought to check the flue to figure out why the smoke keeps backing up into the house.
That was my main gripe with the episode as a whole, but we'll get
This
there.
is how they would have warmed their house. And every time they tried to light a fire, the smoke wouldn't go up for 100 years.
The smoke wouldn't go where it was supposed to.
Smoke don't go up. It came back down.
Well, okay. Conceivably, the power has only been out for the last 3 months. So maybe they've only been dealing with this for 3 months.
Them specifically, yes.
Them specifically. Not in the house with other tenants.
But they lived there
Who knows?
as little girls.
Right.
And power would have only been introduced to that far away of a country farmhouse in the middle of nowhere. Probably, I don't know when that would have gotten power. The 70s?
No idea.
80s maybe? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I just feel like plumbing and power didn't really make it out to the furthest places and parts of the country like this until way later. Because the power grid didn't go.
Later than you would think, I'm sure.
Yeah, I didn't really look into that much, but it just seems...
But yeah, it's hard to believe that they used that as their primary source of cooking or heat for that long, and they just accepted that it didn't work.
At least a few decades.
You know, like I do that, I guess, with some things in my house where I'm like, I'm just not meant to use this, I guess. That's fine, I won't. And I just don't for an extended period of time until, there's some catalyst that prompts me to get it fixed or
I don't know.
What have you.
I don't know.
So it's relatable as a homeowner to have shit happening that shouldn't be, and you just don't necessarily fix it. You live with it.
I can
but
work
when it's
around
something
that.
as important I can work with it.
I can fix that.
It's a very real example, but the valve in my bathroom, like not the guest bathroom, but my bathroom off my bedroom, the valve in the sink doesn't let cold water come out anymore. Only the hot water side is working. And it's a valve, because I've had a similar valve problem with one of the showers, maybe even both of the showers at this point, and I've gotten it fixed. But because my home warranty lapsed and I have not renewed it, I am just like, I could call a plumber and get that dealt with, or I could just turn on the hot water side when I need to use the water in the sink, and it doesn't always get hot. You know what I mean? I don't always use it to the point that it will get hot. And if it does, it's not usually a problem. It's like, okay, the water's hot.
You're just using it for like a minute to wash your hands.
Exactly. I'm using it to wash my hands, brush my teeth, so it doesn't get hot enough to really matter whether I'm using the hot or cold side. So this has been a problem for the last 6 months or so that I have not fixed. So
that's ridiculous.
I
can't believe you. I'm ashamed.
Figured you would be. But at the same time, it's not inconveniencing me really at all. And I have more pressing needs that are inconveniencing me and or have a deadline and or, are putting food on the table. Therefore, I just don't deal with it.
Have you checked to see if you have one of the ghostly trio stuck up in your
I haven't checked
water
for that.
piping?
I really probably should have done that first thing.
You pull out Stretch and he's going to be like, it's my nose.
Be like, why haven't you let me use my cold water for
I like
6
it
months?
up there. It reminds me of the old days when all the water was cold.
It's not a bad Stretch impression.
I've been working on it. But yeah, no.
Anyway,
No.
all that to say, don't get down on Maylene and Greta too much, because
Couple old ladies
might not have the resources to get everything fixed in a timely manner. However,
especially when you don't pay your handyman.
Again, if it's something that you're using for something as essential as heat or food, perhaps maybe you would have.
But even before then, even in the decades before they ever had electricity there, nobody ever tried to fix the flue.
Right.
So they could just use their wood stove so they can have some heat.
And any Darkling out there that has not watched this episode to stay current with us or doesn't recall it from their childhood has no idea why we're harping on this so hard.
I mean,
they're like, guys, what are you talking about? Get on with the program.
We have to chalk it up to kid logic. Kristen is a teenager. She doesn't know how things work. It's just her story being told. That's not the last thing we're going to pick apart in this episode tonight. But on a very, very serious note, everybody knows if you've got chimney smoke backing up into your house, you probably have a dead Santa Claus stuck up there with a broken neck.
Probably. That's almost a definite.
It's guaranteed. We've seen gremlins. We know that's a very high likelihood.
Big problem.
That's the urban legend.
But nobody wants to deal with it because they don't want to be charged with Santa's murder.
If it's you, they're just like,
I don't know.
I'll just close it up. I don't need to use the fireplace.
I'll just close it up. I won't use it.
I don't need to use the fireplace. I'm good without
Honestly, that is me. I wish it wasn't, but that is kind of how I deal with things like that.
I'm like,
I just won't.
Call the chimney sweep.
Today.
Yeah, like tonight. Like, get him out here now.
I do that with things like the air conditioner.
This is their version of the air conditioner. They need it. They need the heat.
That's my
They
exact
don't have
point.
it.
I do it when it's urgent, and that's exactly what I said before. They
All
should.
right, thank you. Okay. All right. Come full circle.
We're here together.
Now we're on the same page. All right. I can calm down. Here we learn the truth of the power outage. These ladies haven't paid their electric bill in 3 months. And they may not have any money, but they do have their dignity and their pride.
Remember what Father always said? Keep your finances to yourself. Neither a borrower nor a lender be. Did Father say that too, Greta?
Or at the very least, they have the desire to respect the wishes of their late father and a prideful determination to uphold the terms of a family feud spanning decades, which is why they can't ask Charles's rich parents for money. The thing about generational traumas like this is that the people who had the grudge have been dead now for the better part of a century.
Yep. It's just the ghost of a grudge living on.
Yeah, here they are, 3 generations down the line, and these women still refuse to borrow money.
No good, dirty, rotten, pig stealing, great-great-grandfather.
Yes. They refuse to borrow money.
Did some shit.
From the Pemberton Schilling side of the family, because their father would roll over in his grave to hear them even talking about it.
Holding these grudges that just like do nothing for your life to either spite or please someone who is dead, like buried, dead and gone.
Yeah.
Makes no good sense to me. Like, I understand like wanting to honor your ancestors and honor your family and honor their wishes, but when it's something like a grudge that is, for all intents and purposes, any grown person can recognize as sort of petty or like not beneficial, I guess.
Yeah, it's
but
not,
we learn what it is about, and I mean,
well, I think in the context of ghost stories and folklore, it's almost a fear. Like they're doing it out of respect because they're characters in a story.
Yes,
but
pride and respect.
In real life, it's almost like I don't want to make his ghost upset.
Spirit mad.
You know, I don't want to piss off the dead. So that's what
Meanwhile,
would give me pause. That would upset.
Meanwhile, some of us cycle breakers do things on the reg that would probably upset some of them folks.
When it's for a good reason, bring that on. Bring on that energy, you know. But
some things have to change, you know.
Got to. But to take a closer look at this grudge and this history between these two brothers.
Little feud. It was a long time ago. There was a terrible falling out between Father and Uncle Charlie. Uncle Charlie was Charles' great-grandfather.
What we can assume is 100 years ago. Their father and their Uncle Charlie both ran the farm, assuming they were born there, grew up there, just took over the family business. And I suppose both of their families lived there as well, or at least on the same property. Uncle Charlie hired a suspicious farmhand, who turned out to be a common criminal and was eventually arrested for robbing a local bank.
He hired a common criminal to work on the farm. Maylene, Uncle Charlie didn't know he was a criminal when he hired him. Yes, but Father thought there was something odd about him from the start. Uncle Charlie wouldn't listen.
Wow, was he a murderer?
Goodness, no. As far as I know, he was a bank robber.
And Greta says the story ended when the man was arrested and put on a train to prison. But Maylene doesn't have quite as much tact, because that's not how she remembers it.
Not how she remembers it at all.
I heard he never made it to prison. The train crashed, and everybody on it was killed. They never found the body of that poor man.
Alexa, play all the ghost train stuff that we talked about for the Haunted Train episode of Hey Arnold. And of course, the already frightened Charles has now heard the entire story, furthering his preoccupation with whether or not this place is haunted. And I don't know about you, but the swinging light bulb would have cinched that for me.
Yeah, I'd be like, hey, actually, yeah, it is. Totally.
Ghosts?
Also, I think it's so funny. Like, I was going to say, in a world of Greta's, be a Maylene. You know, like, anytime somebody's trying to tiptoe around, like, this thing, say the thing.
Just go ahead and say it.
But obviously there's a place for tact, and probably when you're hosting 2 young children who you don't know very well, one of whom isn't even your family, isn't the time to talk about a tragic train crash that killed a bunch of people.
I mean, she's like,
I don't think we should talk about such things.
Why not?
Because we know how young imaginations can take the simplest things and build them up into nightmares and the like.
She's not wrong.
No, not at all.
I love Maylene's just sort of like,
yeah, I can't help but like her. Yeah, I can't help but like her.
She's delighting in all of this. She's like,
she might not make the same choices I would.
I've been wanting children to tell these ghost stories to my entire life. And she's finally got them there. And then a pretty smooth transition to dinner. We get our first taste of what Josh at Dread Central called the Sam Raimi-style camp horror atmosphere. He included the rocking chair in his list of examples, but I think this, POV tracking shot approaching the house is much more to the point. It takes the concept of the slow, watchful eye of the slasher and uses it to rush the house in a fury, jumping over things in the yard and scurrying up to the window to thrust it open and knock a pie off the windowsill.
Out of the windowsill.
Always those pies cooling in the window.
Why is the pie cooling in the windowsill when it's pitch dark and cold outside?
It's freezing cold. That thing would be hard as a brick. It'd be ice cold.
You didn't need to leave it out there. No. It was cold immediately.
There's no heat in your house. It's plenty cold inside your house. Put it on the table for warmth.
And also with this point of view shot, like this is something that we recognize now as a horror like convention.
Yeah.
There's like a Blair Witch element to it, but it's also the thing that's hunting you or stalking you, the perspective of the other thing.
Right.
And it's jarring and jerky and sudden and like it's something that we instantly
Watcher in the Woods, anybody?
Yeah, it's something that we instantly recognize. Even from that age, probably.
Yeah.
Like watching it as a kid, we know what that is and we know what it means. And I always love when they can show us things like that without having to tell us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like anytime there's a cinematography trick or convention that's going to get us there instantly, it just does something to elevate not only the episode and the way that they're telling the story, but also the way that you feel in your guts when you watch it.
Yeah, I specifically remember that convention from Goosebumps. Like that was something that they used a lot. Whatever creature it was, or sometimes it was just like you think it's a creature, but it's like, oh, it's his sister. It's like almost like a gag or like actually the monster.
But something is creeping up on you.
I remember thinking
always.
about that as a kid of like, oh yeah, when they do that like weird, jerky, kind of slow motion but fast paced like camera thing through the woods. That's the creature. Like I remember being a little kid thinking about that. Like, oh, that's so cool how they do that like every time.
But it's definitely way more about how you feel when you watch it.
That feeling,
and that's
that
what informs you. It's all about the way that it feels, not so much even the visual.
Right.
It's just the way it feels to watch it. And I think that's super cool.
It's an exciting moment.
And on that note, Christian, do you think that this kind of shot approaching the house specifically, not just the point of view, not just the herky-jerky through the woods, but do you think that this shot of a creature approaching the house at a rapid pace somehow buried itself in our psyche? The way that we always feel like something's behind us as we're trying to enter the house, or like something's coming at the house from while we're inside and we're afraid to look out the window.
For sure, I think so.
I think so too.
I think it's things like this. Yeah.
Things like this where it is rapidly approaching the house. Just something about that.
I think so.
Stuck
I always feel like,
mind.
Something's following me up the walk to my front door.
Yeah, whenever I like park my car, walk into my front door, like I always get that like just hair on the back of my neck, like somebody could follow me, into my house.
If you're ever like walking through and it's nighttime, you think you've buttoned up, but you haven't, and you look over and the door is unlocked and you're like, I gotta go lock it. Do you ever feel like you're gonna almost get to it and it's gonna open?
Yes, all the time.
All the time.
If I see the door is unlocked and I go to lock, and even if I'm not consciously thinking that, right? Like if I'm sitting on the couch or wherever and I notice, oh yeah, I didn't lock the door when I came in with the groceries or whatever.
Yes.
If I look up and see it unlocked,
it fills me with so much dread.
I stand up in no hurry, but it's just like I have to go lock that. And as the fear doesn't hit me until I'm like 3 or 4 paces from the door. I do it to myself every single time. Like it's been like that all day. Everything's fine. Nothing bad is going to happen.
Nightmares.
And again, I don't even feel the fear when I look up and see it. I don't feel it until I'm in the act of getting there. And then it's like something's racing me. Something's going to beat me. Oh. We've talked about that on the show before. I know.
Yeah, we have.
But something about that just gives me the like deep down horror heebie-jeebies.
Deep down heebie-jeebies.
And I can't help but think, this kind of thing you know, I'm not saying that this specific episode is responsible for
but
that
I think it's
in our
conventions
minds, but
like this. I mean, this is pretty
yeah,
common.
I think it adds
happened
to
a lot
it.
in 90s media.
Yeah.
I would say so.
I was just like, this had to be kind of triggering for baby Kaylin and baby Christian as we watch.
And then to always find out that there is something out in the dark. Like, we weren't wrong. There actually is something out there. Just sort of confirmed that fear. Because you're like, when's the other shoe going to drop? I feel like there's something.
I feel like there's something.
Does that
so
mean
there
that
must
there
be.
is something?
Said every kid who thinks that they have a monster in their closet or under their bed.
I still do. Have the monsters.
Not just think it.
I used to just like fear it was true. Now I know it's true.
Unfortunately, though, Christian, for you, I think that the plot has come full circle because you are now, as we said, be the scary thing unintentionally. You are now the monster in the closet.
I'm the thing in the dark closet right now.
You are right now the thing in the dark closet.
It's fun being on this side of the door.
It's like Hill House again. It's like you were always seeing your future self.
Oh no.
And feeling your future self in there.
Not the last time we're going to reference Nell this evening.
Hey, y'all sick of us talking about Shirley Jackson yet?
Whoops! I thought we'd close that window after we let the smoke out. We did, sister.
Well, this pie, crashing to the floor, kicks off a discussion about the farm's resident ghost. We learn that Walter, the handyman that they hired, took off rather abruptly one day. Either because they couldn't pay him,
astutely recognized by Daphne,
or, as Maylene puts it,
I thought it was because of the ghost.
Again, no tact.
That ghost we weren't going to tell the kids about.
Maylene likes to play it fast and loose when it comes to the ghost, which is really great for exposition. And Greta's constant dismissals of the subject only makes us want to hear more.
Really, dear, it's better we don't. I'm going to apologize because every time I talk about this, strange things happen. Maylene, that is enough.
Unsurprisingly, Charles has a restless night.
Strange things happen.
Another floaty, disembodied POV shot hovers above him in his bed, giving him some very strange bad dreams indeed. From inside the hollowed-out center of a log, we see a large man in overalls, a bandana, and a really trippy checkered coat that I don't think they had in the 1890s. And he lunges forward, reaching toward us inside this nightmarishly small space, blocking out all the light. He yanks hard with a grunt, ripping something away from us, something red, yet indiscernible. This ends the catapult nightmare, as TV Tropes calls it, launching Charles into an upright position in bed. And just when all is calm again, the bedroom windows are flung open by a wind that sends the curtains flying. And when he looks out his window, Charles finally sees the ghost that's been trying to get his attention ever since he arrived. A monochrome apparition of a little boy, standing in the yard, glowing all white with dark eyes and a dark mouth. Both visual clues that this is the ghost of a boy who died of hypothermia. And he looks up to Charles and us and says,
commercial break. I'm cold.
Arguably the most famous line from any episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? All you have to do is say it in a childlike voice, and anyone who knows knows.
100%. This is like the Return the Slab of Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Said it. That's exactly right.
I don't know why either, because it's so simple, but I guess
2 words.
It really did just scare all of us that much.
It was terrifying.
It was a real ghost, you know? It looked like a ghost.
Right.
They don't all look like ghosts, but this one did.
It had everything that we think of when we think ghost.
When you imagine what a ghost
the
looks
ghostly
like, that
pallor.
Yes, an aura of foreboding.
Ooh. This ghost is played by Michael Callas. The role was uncredited, but he's had a pretty solid career. Not only did he go on to act in a few frightening features, including Relative Fear, Screamers, The Life Force Experiment, but he also acted in 2 episodes of Goosebumps and voiced characters in a few animated series such as The Magic School Bus, The Busy World of Richard Scarry, plus 19 episodes of Princess Sissy, 21 episodes of Country Mouse and City Mouse.
They're all in Country Mouse, City Mouse.
And, speaking of that, 58 episodes of Arthur.
No way, they're all in Arthur.
As Arthur's sister.
DW?
Yeah.
No.
Yep.
No.
He was the first voice of DW.
No.
There were a few, but he
Really?
was the first, yeah.
You're breaking my brain.
For 58 episodes.
And every Darkling that's listening.
And I'm pretty sure they're all boys, too.
That play DW.
Mhm.
Huh. Dora Winifred.
Yeah.
DW.
So I thought you'd appreciate that.
I am shocked.
But for that role, he was nominated for a 2000 Young Artist Award for Best Performance in a Voiceover for Young Actors.
I mean, we all love DW. There's still memes where we relate to her.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around the fact that the voice that we kept hearing say, I'm cold, is also DW's voice.
I'm assuming that's still his voice out there. It's pretty disembodied, but I would imagine it's him. So yeah.
Yeah. Surely they would have hired him and he would have done all of it.
We can presume that it's the same voice.
Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that fun?
This is some of the most groundbreaking research That's Pretty Dark has brought to 90s kids' ears, I think. I do not feel like I'm overstating that.
And we've really come across some amazing stuff in our research.
Mm-hmm. Some of those connections.
It's crossover reveals, man.
Wow.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, that's wild.
You're welcome.
DW is cold.
Eternally cold.
You'll never forget it.
Yeah, this dude's pretty cool. The year before that nomination, he was also nominated for a 1999 Young Artist Award for Best Performance in a Feature as a leading young actor for his role in a film called Little Men, which I've never seen.
Man,
but I have
get
seen.
Your start as a ghost. You can go anywhere.
One Day at Horrorland, Part 1 and Part 2. That was him. He was the younger brother.
Wow.
For Goosebumps.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's a very, very famous Goosebumps episode.
In his Dread Central article, Josh goes on to say,
Our phantom is a little boy with a classic mid-90s bowl cut. He also sports shiny white satin pajamas as he appears outside of our main character's window, declaring, I'm cold, in the indifferent, docile tones only a low-rent, non-union Canadian child actor of the 1990s can truly pull off. If there was only one Are You Afraid of the Dark themed GIF left on this planet, this is it.
He's not wrong.
This is a popular GIF.
Wrong.
This guy's spelling is very interesting.
Isn't it strange? I wasn't.
Classic is spelled
Classique.
CLASSIQUE.
And then pajamas.
Pajamas. PYJAMAS.
Pajamas.
Pajamas.
Oh, I have to go back home. I forgot my pajamas. And because it was so famously the cold that killed him, I thought we'd take a little closer look at what happens to you when you freeze to death.
Oh, good. That's what we all want to think about right now.
Hypothermia.
Perfect.
Coming at you from the Mayo Clinic. Kaylin, if you would.
Hypothermia is a condition that occurs when core body temperature drops below 95 degrees Fahrenheit or 35 degrees Celsius. It's a medical emergency. Way to state the obvious, Mayo Clinic.
It's a medical emergency.
In hypothermia, the body loses heat faster than it can produce heat, causing a dangerously low body temperature. When body temperature drops, the heart, nervous system, and other organs can't work as well as they usually do. Left untreated, hypothermia can cause the heart and respiratory system to fail.
Symptoms include shivering, slurred speech or mumbling, slow, shallow breathing, weak pulse, clumsiness or lack of coordination, drowsiness or very low energy, confusion or memory loss, or loss of consciousness.
So you've brought us here today to make us think about what the final moments
of this little boy's life was. Because
like.
I'm going to talk about what I think happened in his final moments.
Continuing the quote, people with hypothermia usually aren't aware of their condition. The symptoms often begin gradually. Also, the confused thinking associated with hypothermia prevents self-awareness. The confused thinking can also lead to risk-taking behavior. I have read about this before or seen this. It's like whenever somebody gets in that state of I'm so cold, it's literally I'm so cold I can't think.
Right, yes.
You lose the ability to reason.
Very much.
Similarly to a lot of different medical emergencies, you're no longer like yourself. You're no longer in control of your faculties. Mm-hmm. So you're like, why didn't he just go inside? Why didn't he just go to a neighbor? Why didn't he just do something else? Which are all things that I thought upon watching this when I was a kid.
Me too.
I think it's a good thing to point out. Like when you are in that state, you don't have all of your reasoning available to you.
Yes, especially when you're a little boy.
Yeah, when it's limited reasoning to begin with.
Because kids in particular are like most at risk for developing hypothermia. Kids, the elderly, people with specific medical conditions, but kids especially.
Mayo Clinic says this is because children lose heat faster than adults do. Children may ignore the cold because they're having too much fun to think about it. They may not have the judgment to dress properly in the cold weather or to get out of the cold when they should. And that I have seen, especially, we've talked with you all about how we've recently had like record-breaking snow with people who are not used to being outside in the snow, especially kids.
Yeah.
Like my best friends were saying that their kid would have literally died out there because he was having so much fun playing. He's 3 years old.
Yeah.
He's cold, but it's like that's not registering to him as much as the fun that he's having.
Right.
And he would literally just stay out there. Like they had to force him to go inside, and he was very upset about it. But it's like, this is for your safety. Kids don't necessarily realize the damage that it could be doing until it's too late.
For sure.
So unfortunately, all of this together kind of proves the point that it's not so far-fetched to think that a little boy could die in conditions like this pretty easily.
It paints a picture. And as I mentioned, our frozen ghost boy has dark eyes and lips. And this is because any part of your body turning bluish or purplish in cold weather is a phenomenon called cyanosis that occurs when the blood vessels constrict in the cold, reducing blood flow and therefore oxygen. Blood that has low levels of oxygen turns bluish in color. So grab your paintbrushes, kids. We're going to be mixing some oxygenated blood with some low oxygen blood. We'll have a red, we'll have a blue, and we're going to see if it makes purple. There's also another horrifying but perfectly natural symptom of hypothermia that might explain why the frozen ghost boy's jacket was so easily stolen by the farmhand.
Yeah.
There are examples of this in many real-life horror stories, like people being trapped in avalanches, etc.
Yes.
Etc., etc.
Etc., etc. I know exactly what you're going to say.
You do. A lot of people have been found in freezing temperatures without any clothes on.
No clothes at all.
And this is because, as a last-ditch effort to warm you up for just a little bit longer in case it saves your life, your blood vessels actually open back up and expand, which floods your tissue with blood and makes you feel overheated to the point that you need to take your clothes off and cool down because you think you're too hot.
Yes.
So it almost feels like a form of cold-induced mania. Like it seems psychological, but it's just one of the human body's involuntary functions of survival. And depending on how long the boy hid in that log before the farmhand found him, it could easily be that he simply just took his jacket off because he began feeling too warm.
He felt too hot.
I think we should have some fun. I think we should pivot from reality to a little bit of surreality and explore a small corner of the internet dedicated to the ghosts of those who died by freezing.
Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, God.
From the Notebook of Ghosts blog by Ashley Watson. If you're listening out there, what's up?
Hey, Ashley.
There's a post from February 10th, 2016 called Frozen to Death. Inciting a blogging event announced by one of her favorite blogs called The Midnight Society, Ashley said her favorite episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark was The Tale of the Frozen Ghost. So much so that she still routinely quotes, "I'm cold," to very unamused friends on especially cold occasions.
Sure, she's not the only one.
She then gives this frozen ghost motif a name, the Blue Boy. And I very much approve of that categorization. She said,
"The Blue Boy is not just the creation of the Midnight Society, but also a legend of historic Gettysburg."
She then pulls a direct retelling of this tale from The Toast.
Stevens Hall, now a stately neoclassical dorm, was erected in 1868 as a preparatory school for girls. In the 1870s, a few girls from the school befriended a boy from town. One day, in the dead of winter, the boy escaped his abusive home and found refuge in the girls' room on the second floor. That snowy night, the headmistress came around to the rooms to check on the girls before bed. As she approached the room with the boy, the girls hurriedly hid the boy on the ledge outside their window. The headmistress took her time talking to the young women, and she did not leave the room until nearly an hour later. The girls threw the window open to look for the boy, but all that was left were small footprints in the snow on the ledge. They ran outside to see if he had fallen, but the boy was nowhere to be found. To this day, sightings of a boy in the window, blue in the face as if frozen, are common among female residents of Stevens Hall.
And using this as a launching off point, Ashley summarizes a few other bits of frozen ghost folklore from across the US, all found on the shadowlands.net. She said, I began to read through the archives, searching for ghosts roaming the earth for some warmth. And these are kind of paraphrased from what she had listed on her blog.
One such tale is told at Boy Scout Lake in Clatonia, Nebraska, where the ghost of a frozen woman is said to walk the grounds. As the story goes, a young woman sent her children outside to help her husband with the farm chores. A blizzard unexpectedly hit, and she left the house to search for her husband and children. While they hid safely in a nearby barn, she froze to death in the snowy field. To this day, she can be seen walking the grounds of Boy Scout Lake at night with blue skin and visible breath even when it isn't cold out. She will approach passing campers to ask if they know where her children are.
I think that one's a lot of fun.
Oh man, not for her.
Well, yeah, not for her. Or the campers. Well, maybe for the campers. I don't know.
Depends on the camper.
Depends on the camper. In Anson, Michigan, people have reported the ghost of a woman walking down the road or hanging from a tree.
One is worse.
Legend says that a woman went out into the night to find her lost toddler. She never found him, and they both froze to death. And she still searches Anson for her frozen son to this day.
Jeez.
So I guess the hanging from a tree could be that she couldn't find him, so she killed herself. She hanged herself, so because she knew it was over.
Don't like that at all.
Interesting stuff. Very spooky. Pretty spooky.
If you say so.
This one just makes me laugh. All right, here we go. It's just so like, wait, what?
At the University of North Dakota, legend says a female student was locked out of a dormitory on a cold winter night. She froze to death. The apparition of a female torso haunts the dormitory along with electrical problems. Just the torso? That was the coldest part?
I don't understand. I don't get
Or the
it.
warmest part. It lasted longer?
Could be that, yeah, her limbs froze off. Maybe she got frostbite.
She lost her limbs to frostbite as she was dying.
Oh, that's so
Must
funny.
be. A female torso.
The apparition of a female torso. Does it have a shirt on, do you think?
I was wondering that, but was not going to ask.
Is it a naked torso?
I assume she was still wearing a shirt, but
It
again,
would
we've
just
learned.
look like a floating t-shirt.
You could tell.
Yeah, I guess so.
There would be signs.
Sure, yeah. In a roast beef shop in Santa Clara, California, a man was accidentally locked in a large freezer.
Oh, I hate it. I hate it. I hate it.
Now, when shutting the door between 10 p.m. and 12 a.m., you can hear the screams of the trapped man. Yeah, that kind of stuff gets me because, like, yes, there's a latch on the inside of the freezer, but it's so commonly done in fiction that people are locked in freezers. So the latch must be like a fail-safe situation that not every freezer has.
I don't like it because it can happen. It can happen intentionally. It can happen accidentally. And it can happen to anyone in the vicinity of an industrial freezer or oven.
Especially if you're like a closing manager or something and it's like late at night.
That's what scares me. There's always somebody locking up after hours doing the checklist and wrong place, wrong time, wrong moment.
Yeah.
Don't like that at all. And I don't want to hear their screams. Ever.
No matter what, I for sure don't want to hear their screams. Oh, according to available data, hypothermia is considered relatively common today. I just looked up how common is it today.
Just hypothermia?
There's between 700 and 1,500 deaths from hypothermia in the U.S. alone each year. That's a lot of people dying from the cold.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of them, it's like they die in cars when they're stuck from snow, ice, bad weather or something, and they can't.
Yeah, it's the elderly, young children, homeless people.
Yeah, unhoused population for sure.
And those participating in cold weather activities, yes.
Yikes.
Males are more likely to experience hypothermia than females.
Every medical thing I read or see says females are more likely, so I'll give y'all this one.
Well, to wrap up her post, Ashley recounts a bit of Japanese folklore that I've never heard but found super interesting.
While the bitter cold can kill and trap people on Earth, it can also warn us of a spirit's presence, or in some cases, be a spirit's weapon. In Japanese folklore, the female spirit Yuki-onna, Snow Woman, is the spirit of a woman who had died in snow. Tall and beautiful with long black hair, she floats across the snow since she has no feet. She's very pale and almost translucent, so she blends into any winter backdrop. She'll appear to travelers during snowstorms, either freezing them to death with her cold breath or leading them astray so that they freeze to death in the elements. Some versions say she freezes them through sex or a deadly kiss. So like a succubus Elsa.
It also kind of has that flair of like the will-o-wisp, you know?
Yeah, we're going to lead you somewhere. We're going to guide you somewhere, and it may not be where you want to go.
Guide you into the swamp to drown, but it's more like I'm going to guide you out into the snow. That concept of like a mirage, you know, like maybe.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I feel like I've seen versions of this where it's like snow blindness, not to be confused with a drug reference, but you see just like all the, you know, you can't see. Everything's white, it blends together, and then you imagine a mirage or something that's saving you, but it's actually
a super sexy lady
with
being like, come
hair.
to my cabin over
I
here.
have a cabin,
I have
fire.
a cabin with fire.
Come get warm with me.
It's just a big pile of
There's
snow.
a snowdrift. Walk into a snowdrift, never to be heard from again.
It sounds like a creature in an anime.
But it's like you were saying, kind of like that. Those last moments of your mind trying to make sense of it, to fix it, to help you.
Yeah.
I can see that being a thing that, you know, like people imagine in their final moments, and then
beginning to hallucinate and everything. Yeah.
And then are saved, and then they tell somebody, I saw this woman, long black hair, she was gonna, you know.
Oh man, to survive that, how scary would that be, to come home with that story? Be like, I actually saw this, it was real.
Right.
And according to my Google search engine, that's all there is to ghosts of people who froze to death.
That's it.
Just this blog post and a whole bunch of stuff about Are You Afraid of the Dark and its frozen ghost. And, you know, sometimes my heart swells with pride knowing that DJ concocted some genuinely original ghost motifs. And other times I'm absolutely shocked that there isn't a famous frozen ghost motif already out there in folklore for us to, you know, dive into. And maybe there is, and my Google algorithm is wrong. If I am, I want to know, and I want you guys to send me stuff or tell me what you've heard, because I am super intrigued by this.
Well, you are leaving out one key search result from your Google searching, which is the one that you sent to me in a text message.
Oh my God.
The other night, which is a screenshot of a Reddit post where someone has taken a photo of icicles that have somehow frozen over outside of someone's window in the very distinct shape of a person.
And they said, it's so cold, the ghost that haunts my house is frozen.
Is frozen.
And it looks like a straight up frozen ghost.
It's really spooky, actually.
But either way, whether there's more out there or not, I am so glad that we get to document these histories here. You know, if there isn't a whole history of frozen ghost stories out there, it makes me feel like that we've all got to experience the origin of a whole new sort of urban legend.
Together there in the 90s.
I think that's pretty cool. After scaring Charles silly, the ghost vanishes, just like that. And Charles runs to Daphne's room and tries to tell her what happened, but she kicks him out, convinced it was a nightmare.
Charles, what are you doing? The ghost! I saw a ghost! It was a boy! He was outside, he was calling up to me!
Charles, you had a bad dream. Now get out of my bed and go back to sleep.
It wasn't a dream. I mean, I was having a bad dream.
I'm telling you, if I'm babysitting in a creepy old house and then a kid comes into my room freaking out about a ghost, I'm not going to kick him out. I'm not going to kick him out.
She's cruel to him.
She's cold.
Would you say frozen?
Perhaps even frozen.
I like that smash cut too.
Yeah. Smash cut to just his like shadow. Like, it's like a meme where the kid's like, Mom, I threw up, but he's just like standing against the wall.
That's perfect, yeah. But at breakfast the next day, Maylene does what she does best and reveals that not only have they seen the ghost, but it has never spoken to them before.
Greta, did you hear that? It's never spoken to us.
Daphne's like, you don't really believe this. And one of the two of them, I think it's Maylene, is like, of course we do. And she goes,
Cool. Well, whose ghost is it?
Cool.
Yeah, cool.
That was her response.
So who's the ghost?
Cool.
I know. It just took an adult telling her, yeah, there's a ghost, for her to change
there's a
her
ghost.
tune.
She's like, okay, cool.
Cool.
It's so funny the way she said it. It was just so Melissa Joan Hart.
Yes. At Daphne's request, they speculate that the ghost must belong to a little boy who died on the property before they were born, sounds like. He used to sneak over and steal their mother's cookies, but one day his corpse was just found out in the woodshed, all curled up like he was trying to keep warm.
They said he froze to death, poor thing.
How sad.
Hey.
Yeah.
Guess what?
What?
That's pretty dark.
Hey, pretty dark, DJ.
Pretty dark of you.
Well, just then, the fire goes out in the wood stove, and there's no more wood, probably as a result of the handyman's swift departure. Daphne and Charles go out to the woodshed to chop up some firewood.
Because Daphne's like, tell me where to go. I'll go get it. No big deal. No problem. I'm an enterprising,
Let's get some wood.
capable young woman.
I'll do it for cash.
Yeah.
I did find it odd, though, that they didn't even take a single beat to acknowledge that this was the same woodshed
Where the
little
kid
boy
died. Yeah.
They just heard that story at breakfast
Yep.
moments ago.
Moments ago. Then let's head on out to the woodshed where we're not going to talk about the dead kid because we've used the word dead or killed too many times now already.
Just a single beat, just another smash
Just
cut
a pause
to them
where they look at each other.
looking at the shed and look at each other and go, "Ugh." Give it one little shiver. Perfect. Solid. But they would rather argue.
You are a complete and total wuss.
I am not.
You are too. You're always finding an excuse not to do things. When are you gonna quit being such a freak?
I'm not a freak.
Yeah.
She was
right.
like, if it weren't for me, you'd be in the house playing your video games and nice clean clothes and like, wouldn't that be so terrible? And I'm like, no, it wouldn't actually.
Can I please do that like any
yeah,
given
why
day?
don't we just do that?
I love that just out of the shower clean feeling of like,
Oh, same.
"Ooh, I'm going to put on my pajamas and I'm going to go sit on my couch and play video games. I don't get to anymore. I have no more time. But watch a show or something before bed. Ooh, and then getting in bed, clean sheets.
Clean sheets. Yeah, that's the best sleep. Clean
Best sleep.
sheets.
Easily.
Shower.
Yeah, she'd rather bully him.
Yeah. And I mean, I would be pretty annoyed if somebody rubbed mud all over me just to make a point. I'm not kidding. Like,
I wouldn't
he's
whine
like-
and cry about it. Like, I'm
Right,
going to
no, I
tell
wouldn't-
my parents and they're going to get mad at you.
And that's the point. They want him to be, in this moment, they want that character to be sniveling and like, but
I mean, I'd be like,
I would be mad
yeah.
myself. Like, it's not like I'm upset about getting muddy. I'm upset that you're smearing mud on me for no reason. Like, if I'm getting mud on me to do a task or for a purpose, then okay, I deal with it. But like, if you're putting mud on me just to rub it in my face, literally,
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Right.
Not so nice, Daphne.
Not so nice, Daphne.
While I get her point, there are other ways of making it.
Not so likable there, Daphne.
Oh, look, he's still alive. He survived a little bit of mud.
It's such a bully.
So sarcastic.
It's something our president would do to Zelensky.
Sure is.
President Zelensky.
He'll wear a costume when the war's over, Daphne.
We'll all be smeared with mud.
Mm.
And out of the cold, the bent neck ghost of Nellie Crane sticks her
Hey.
broken neck out between the two of them and screams to stop their arguing.
Oh, that moment.
Nay, not Nell, but the frozen ghost does call out to them. And this time, Daphne hears it too.
What was that?
The ghost! The ghost! We have to get back to the house. Millie and Greta said it won't come inside.
I think it came from over here.
No, Daphne!
I'm cold.
And she runs off after the voice.
Take the axe with you, Daphne. You're holding an axe.
It's a
right
ghost.
there.
You can't use it against a ghost.
How does she know that?
She runs off after the voice, leaving Charles alone so we can get the super fun gag of the footsteps forming in the mud, walking closer
Well,
and closer.
first he's panning back and forth, his gaze, his glance. He's looking, and this is supposed to be his
Man,
point of view
that
now,
camera
another
work.
point of view shot.
That camera work.
And then, yes, we see the mud and footsteps appearing in it.
Not a bad practical effect.
Pretty damn good.
And he tries to run away through the woods, but the ghost thwarts his every attempt at escape until Charles falls, face first, into a puddle of mud. So earlier Daphne was like, "What's wrong with clean clothes? I'll show you what's wrong with clean clothes." And now the ghost is like, "What's wrong with clean clothes? I'll show you what's wrong with clean clothes." Although he's probably much more interested in his dry, warm clothes.
Yes, indeed he is.
And at long last, the ghost points to the log from Charles's dream. And I mean, seriously, how old is this log? It was already hollow 100 years ago. You're telling me it's still there today?
The timeline is trippy. I'm not clear on the timeline.
Mm-mm.
And no one's moved it. It's just been there like undisturbed for that long.
And inside, they find the boy's jacket, which Charles hands over to the frozen ghost for his final Thackeray Binks moment, regaining all of his color and wearing the clothes he died in. And, this episode just really makes me feel ignorant of history because I didn't realize they had Gap kids back in the 1890s.
I had the same thought. I was like, when is this kid? Like, when is he? Not what is he? Not where, but when is this kid? I don't understand.
Me neither. I mean, the farmhand's red and blue checkered peacoat he was wearing was so
Maybe
strange.
we're just off. Maybe we're not thinking of it right. Like, I don't know.
And, of course, inside the jacket is the flue key.
Well, we don't know that just yet.
You're right. We don't know that yet, Kaylin, but I know it's a flue key, so I'm going to call it a flue key. And it falls. The flue key falls to the ground. And when they return the flue key to the house, Maylene then uses the flue key to open the flue with the flue key.
Yeah.
And now I can't unsee the visual of these two ladies playing the slots over in Biloxi because they hit the jackpot for real.
They really did.
Like something out of the Goonies, once the flue is opened with the flue key specifically.
That fell out of the
jacket before.
That belonged to the ghost
that fell out of the 100-year-old log.
I'm just saying, give that moment its due. The thing to me that got me, it's like this poor little ghost kid. Like, of course, yes, okay, you can think of it like he's trying to guide them to the flue key, which we didn't know at the time.
The key was a flue key.
You could think of it like that. But you could also think of it like this poor little ghost boy who froze to death. All he wants is his jacket. Perhaps the last thing that he desperately wanted in those last moments of his life.
Right.
I just need my jacket. I'm so cold. I need my jacket. I need my coat. Like, that's what he would have been thinking. And that's the echo, the imprint that his ghost has left.
Right.
There's that too. I mean, it's not
it was
all about
from him.
the flue key and the treasure.
No, that's just an added bonus for the ladies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't even know why he took the key. He just did. But we can speculate in a moment.
Okay. I was about to say.
We're almost there.
We have theories.
We're almost there. So yes. So Maylene uses the flue key to open the flue. And a massive stash of perfectly polished gold coins spills out of the wood stove.
Maylene, Greta, I have a feeling your money troubles are over.
That have never, oxidized at all in that whole time. They look shiny and new.
Because this is where the farmhand stashed the loot after robbing that bank.
Wouldn't that have been heavy?
Yeah.
Like too heavy?
Yeah, I would think so.
For a flue?
I mean, I don't know. It depends on how sturdy it was. That would have been cast iron. But I don't know. All the home renovations that house has gone through in 100 years, and they didn't ever detach.
Never, ever.
That from the walls.
And again, the point that we were making earlier, which is it hasn't been functional for this long, and you've just let smoke billow into your home and nearly burn your house down sometimes because there is no ventilation for this stove.
Yeah, I think you're right. I agree exactly. Why did nobody ever check this? Because they just didn't. Because otherwise we wouldn't have an episode.
Right. And we needed an episode, by golly.
And as the Midnight Society, back at the super duper hot campfire, pieces together at the end of the episode.
The Heatwave Society, you mean?
The criminal hid the gold in the pipe.
And the little boy saw him when he was looking for cookies.
Charles's dream.
Poor kid. He froze to death hiding from the criminal, and no one knew.
The little boy snuck over for cookies, saw the man hiding the gold, and stole the flue key. He ran away from the man, who then took his jacket, leaving him for dead out in the cold.
So we do know why he took the flue key.
Why?
Because he saw the man hiding the treasure.
And so why did he take the key?
He took the key to be able to show it to whomever lived in the house. The lady of the house.
Did he know the bank was robbed?
No, but he saw the dude hiding the gold. He's like, there's gold in them there stovepipes. I'm gonna show you.
Yeah.
But he didn't have time because he froze to death. He was going to bring the flue key back and show the owners of the house where the gold was.
Could be.
Where the gold at?
Where the gold at?
It's in the stovepipe.
It is almost St. Patrick's Day.
But he knew, and his knowledge died with him.
Well, this is true. I just don't know the logic of a, 7-year-old boy with something like that. But maybe he just knew something wasn't right here, so he took the key to take to his parents or something like that.
Or he didn't want the criminal to get away with his crime.
I don't think he understood the crime. I'm not saying he wanted to steal the gold. I'm saying Maybe he perceived that something wasn't right here, so he was going to go tell an adult.
Sure.
But he didn't make it right. So when he's out hiding and this man chases him, finds him, and steals his jacket, didn't the farmhand take his jacket?
I thought so.
So when he left...
Why was it in the log?
Yeah.
My question as well.
Why is the jacket and the key back in the log?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he hid it to come back for it or something.
I think perhaps, yes.
But then he got arrested, died in the train crash, or didn't.
I think he did because he would have come back for his flu key and robbed the place.
Re-robbed the place of the
I gotta
gold that he
re-steal my own
already
loot.
stole.
This episode never explains all these details. We only have speculation. It's not a plot hole necessarily, and we don't have to chalk this up to fridge logic. Like we're saying, he probably put it back in that same log for later.
Thinking he would come back for it.
He just never came back for it.
Not intending to kill the kid, because you never know that that's going to happen. But again, the kid got disoriented.
I disagree. My own conclusions gave me a massive case of the shivers.
Uh-oh.
Here's what I think is a version of what could have happened. The farmhand found the boy hiding in the log. He took his jacket, and in the jacket pocket was the flu key. But there was still the matter of the boy who had seen everything, who could still tell anyone at the farm about the gold.
Right. So my earlier point coming back to haunt me.
So what does the man do? He's got his jacket. He's warm. So he waits. He waits until the boy can't run away again. He waits till dark. He waits until the temperature drops. He waits until the boy maybe falls asleep. And then he waits a little while longer. And once he's sure the boy will never be able to speak again, he carries him to the woodshed and leaves his body before the sun can rise and everyone awakens for the day's work. So why move him to the woodshed? Because finding the boy in the log might raise too many questions. What was he hiding from, or who? Who put him there? But finding him in the woodshed is simple enough for all the reasons we went through earlier.
He was disoriented. He was seeking warmth. That's where he landed.
Eventually he falls asleep, and there he was found.
That's pretty darker.
If hypothermia is that common today, it must have been so common 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Or at this point, 130 years ago?
Yeah, a little more.
I just think there's a lot there, and I think his death was intentional. I don't think it was as simple as, oh, he stole the jacket and that's how the boy died. I think it was a very pointed, intentional, neglectful murder. Intentional,
I hate to say it,
negligent homicide sort of situation.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but you make a good case.
He said, I'll let the cold do what I can't do myself.
I think you're right.
And once he's, because, he
doesn't want to be found out.
Doesn't want to get found out.
That's his primary
He couldn't
motivation.
leave the boy because he would just go tell someone. Or if he did, and the alternative is that the boy did get up, disoriented, wandered over to the woodshed, lied back down. That's a possibility, but I still think the farmhand,
he wouldn't leave that loose thread.
Right. I think he stayed until he knew the boy was dead.
He is a criminal after all.
Yes.
And when they address it, when they talk about him being a criminal,
is he a murderer?
Daphne says, a murderer? No, a bank robber.
Yes.
From my understanding. But
I think that's sort of a little nugget of,
maybe he's both.
Yeah, maybe he is a murderer. Maybe he did mean for this boy to die on purpose.
Maybe he's both.
And then he went, that log was a really good hiding spot. I'm going to go put this back in the log. No one's going to go looking.
And I'll be back for it.
He said, I'll come back for it later. In the meantime, he's arrested because there's enough tying him to the event.
Yeah, I guess the fact that the jacket was found in the log lends itself to your theory. Because if he didn't intend for the boy to die, there was no reason for him not to just give the jacket back once he had the key.
Right.
Yikes.
So there you go. Some pretty dark stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty dark.
Like many of these episode concepts, there feels like a lot of untapped potential here for something longer, maybe an hour long. Are You Afraid of the Dark? For the 1-year anniversary, that would have been pretty cool.
Melissa Joan Hart.
You got Melissa Joan Hart. You get a full hour, all right?
Yeah.
There were a lot of red herrings, a lot of good spooks to indulge in that they kind of had to gloss over. At first the ants feel like the ghost, and then the ghost feels like the farmhand, and then the handyman kind of feels like the ghost of the farmhand. And then it's like, well, maybe there's the boy and the farmhand on the property, and you don't know which is which.
Yeah.
There's a lot to this. And especially at the end, there's so much potential there when he falls in the mud and the boots walk up. It's Daphne. But it's almost like they wanted you to think, maybe this is where we reveal the farmhand. the ghost
Yeah.
of the farmhand. But there's no time.
There's no time.
They had 20 minutes to get this done.
To me, this episode felt shorter than the ones we've recently covered now that
Yeah.
we've done several in a row. To me, this one felt so much shorter, but there's so much in it.
It's almost like it's 2 acts, not 3.
Yeah.
This just felt like it had 2 parts, and that's it.
There's something about the simplicity of it that to me, even though they leave a lot of stones unturned and they leave a lot of potential and they don't answer a lot of questions, makes it a better episode as a ghost story. Because ghost stories do that. You never have all the threads tied up in a ghost story.
Yeah, you don't want everything explained.
You never should. Because if you do, it's not really that spooky.
Right.
There have to be other like corridors for your mind to wander down.
Right.
And so to me, that makes this episode spookier.
It's true.
A little bit more of that like ethereal, maybe who knows kind of vibe than we got in the previous episodes, even though they were going for some of that, like who knows, what if in the other episodes. For whatever reason, I just feel like this one accomplished it a little more successfully.
And for those reasons, what would you give this on a scareometer?
Scareometer time. Ow. I've been sitting in one place for far too long. My body
Yeah, my
hates
back
me for
hurts.
it. That's the scariest thing, is that I'm old. I'm old.
I'm old.
That's the scariest truth of all. I think for a scareometer, I would have to give this one. It's so hard because are you comparing it to other episodes? Are you comparing it to yourself as a child? Like we've talked about it. We do not have clear and set parameters or criteria for what constitutes a scareometer.
The rules
It
are
is
made
truly
up.
just vibes.
The points don't matter.
The points. The points don't matter at all here.
No.
I'm gonna say a 7.
Oh, okay.
Because they talk a lot about killing and death. There is a child who did die in this universe, in this story. It's not just a hypothetical of they say maybe a child died. Like, this really happened in this world.
Yeah.
So that automatically bumps it up because there has been a death that was pretty intense.
Yeah.
There are also mentions of death in the way of train crashes, other things. There is a malicious criminal also in this universe. So you've got that real element of horror too. And then you have all the red herrings of the ghostly aunties that are just floating around the house with candelabras.
Ghostly aunties.
So it's like, are they or are they not? And it's not necessarily scary, but just the potential, like you said, there's so much like kinetic ghost energy.
Yeah. Oh,
like
yeah.
we don't know if it's coming or going, but it's there.
So much here. Yeah.
So that would be my
7. I was thinking for you it would be
reasoning.
like a 7 or 8.
Yeah.
For me, it's an 8 or a 9. I
Okay.
wrote down 9, and I waver back and forth between the two for all the same reasons. It's just, it's not I say it's not overtly scary, but
as a kid watching The Blue Boy,
this one left a mark on me as a kid.
yeah.
I thought about it all the time, and it
Yeah.
haunted me. That kid outside in the cold just
Because he
messed
looked
me up.
exactly like we were told ghosts look.
Yeah.
Like it was just the visual of that. Like you really saw one. It was like me seeing hell in All Dogs Go to Heaven.
Right.
We saw it visually, the thing that we imagined all the time.
It's this visual proof,
Mm-hmm.
confirmation of something you already believe.
Confirmation bias, then your brain grabs it and says, yeah, that is what
Yeah.
ghosts look like. I saw one.
It's what they act like. They're otherworldly.
They repeat themselves.
They say the same thing over and over.
Echoing.
It's echoes.
Because they have one mission. It fit the picture
And it stuck with me.
of what a ghost was.
Ooh, buddy. And that's why it's one of the most unnerving, memorable episodes. It's very scary. A lot of people consider this one of the scariest ones, just for these reasons, because it was so haunting and unforgettable.
And I think people probably remember it better just because of Melissa Joan Hart.
Yeah, that didn't hurt, for sure. So that's really all I've got. I have a couple of final thoughts. Does the frozen ghost speak to Charles because he's the first little boy to set foot on the
'Cause
property
they did
since
say
his death?
that he didn't speak to them.
Or can the frozen ghost only speak at all because this winter is parallel to the same one that killed him 100 years ago? One of those
Yeah,
would come full circle sort of deals.
Leap day moment. We're all present here together.
Right.
This was the anniversary of my death or something.
Mhm. It's like time
They didn't
looping
have
in
to
on
say it.
itself, and so the veil is thin because it's 100 years, and it's an equally cold winter, and so it's
There's
just
no power on the property.
it's just cold enough for him to speak You know, like it has to be the right temperature for him to
I
speak.
think that we're probably closer on the fact that he reveals himself to his own kind.
A little boy.
Like-minded. This boy, I think, will listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, grown-ups don't listen to me. You know, they never did. I never felt safe around grown-ups. Grown-ups never made me feel safe. I never wanted to reveal myself to those ladies. They were making cookies, and I was coming over to steal. You know, like he was hiding from them. I mean,
he
in
definitely.
Life.
His mom didn't make him cookies.
No.
Whoever his parent or guardian was when he was coming up, he definitely had no cookies.
But he was hiding from the, you know, adults of the house in life. So maybe that just stuck with the apparition.
I think you're right. I think we need to know the backstory of this kid. We need to know what his life was like. That's probably the true horror story here.
Hate to think.
Leading up to his death.
You might be right.
They said that they just found him in the woodshed, but they didn't say there was a missing children's situation. They didn't say.
No, they didn't say there was a.
He didn't come home
his
one
parents were devastated. Nothing. Just kid died.
They found him. That's where they
but
found him.
Sometimes those details don't stick in the ghost story.
That's true.
Sometimes there is a lot of sorrow and mourning, and you don't hear about it.
That's true. That's true. Wow. Well, I hope this was, you know, just chipper and happy. And I hope it really fills your life.
That's what we have a reputation for.
Just fills your life with good vibes and good feelings as we leave the winter season.
Whether you're too hot or too cold or whatever you're feeling right now.
Well, too much something. Yeah, officially leaving the end of spooky season and heading into the season of, you know, sunshine and flowers and like, you know, pretty beautiful things. But
pollen.
No, honestly, I am excited. I do love summer. I'm looking forward to a lot of it. But God, the pollen and the insects, I am not looking forward to.
No, it's always rough when they come back.
Oof.
Although they were talking early in the episode, the Midnight Society, about like, can we change our name to the Heatwave Society and tell the ghost stories in a pool? I was like, I want to be in the Heatwave Society and tell ghost stories in a pool.
That
yes.
sounds so cool.
Yes, I do. Sign me up.
Take us a monster swim.
Sunshine, pool, even a nighttime pool.
Swim,
nighttime swim and a ghost story. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a good vibe.
How perfect would it be if we hosted a like midnight swim spooky event where we watch the tale of the dead man's float?
Oh, yeah.
In the pool.
And darklings are shaking in their boots.
It's like
everybody says Dead Man's Float's the scariest
it's
episode.
So scary. Definitely made me afraid of pools. That and Jaws. But then of course they have like Jaws movie nights, but like in the water.
At the beach.
Like at the beach and stuff. Like that's a fun time. That's so fun. Just further like submerging yourself in that sort of reality.
They had like an outdoor movie night in college. I don't remember the film, but it was it wasn't like Friday the 13th, but it was something like that. Like we were outside kind of surrounded by the woods. It was out near the dorms, like the Epsilon dorms. Being immersed outside watching that movie was scary as all hell. I don't even remember what movie it was, but just the fact that we were all outside together watching it made it 10 times scarier.
Yeah. I love
of course then you're on your toes thinking some stupid college kid's going to pull a prank and run out of the woods screaming.
Yeah, right.
Or worse, somebody's going to take advantage of that for like a true horror scene, you know? That's the kind of thing you think about in today's society.
Yeah, some psycho would definitely try to pull something. Ugh. Man, oh man, nope, we can't have any fun anymore.
No, pretty much.
Everything's too dangerous. It's a sad world we live in.
Yeah.
Well, if you guys had a good time, you can go to our Patreon, patreon.com/TPD podcast if you think we deserve your $5 a month or whatever you want to give.
We would appreciate it greatly.
Very, very much. We work very hard.
It helps us keep making the content. It helps us keep showing up for the episodes, do the research.
It helps us keep recording even when we have the flu.
You can also find us on our socials at That's Pretty Dark Podcast on Instagram, at That's Pretty Dark on TikTok. And if you just are dying to talk to us, you can DM us on any one of those platforms, or you can get into our email inbox, which we read every email, by the way. Every single email we read. You can contact us at that'sprettydarkpodcast@gmail.com. And something that we should add, I think, to our outros as we're exiting our episodes. Thank you to our dear Darkling friend turned editor, Mason.
Mason.
We appreciate you.
You're a real pal. You're a dude.
You're a real dude among dudes. Thank you for all that you do as well to help us keep this up. And I'm sure our Darkling friends feel the same.
Yes. Thanks, Mason. Thanks, Kaylin. Thank you, Darkling listeners.
Thanks, Christian.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for thanking me.
And also with you.
We'll thank you guys next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye. That's Pretty Dark Podcast is produced by Kaylin Andrews and me, Christian Baxter Mott.
With music by Jonathan Simmons and cover design by Halftone Horror.
You can support our show by supporting our sponsors, or go to patreon.com/TPD podcast to unlock all the Pretty Dark bonus content we have in store.
Please share your experiences and let us know what shows, films, or villains still haunt you from childhood on our socials or at that'sprettydarkpodcast@gmail.com.
For all other information, visit our website, that'sprettydark.com.
Remember, you're never really alone.
So, until next time, sweet dreams, everyone.